morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose, and it is great to see you here this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. We breathe into this place within us, this place of depth. We inhale, we exhale. We allow ourselves to become still. We let go of everything but this present moment, and we open our hearts to listen to the words of our sacred reading.
A poem about love by Jalaluddin Rumi. A spirit that lives in this world and does not wear the shirt of love. Such an existence is a deep disgrace. Be foolishly in love, because love is all there is. There is no way into presence except through a love exchange. If someone asks, what is love? Answer, dissolving the will. True freedom comes to those who have escaped the questions of free will and fate. This love path has no exceptions. It has no expectations. Are you uneasy riding this body? Dismount. Travel lighter. Wings will be given. Be clear like a mirror, reflecting nothing. Be clean of pictures and the worry that comes with images. Gaze into what is not ashamed or afraid of any truth. Contain all human faces in your own without any judgment of them. Be pure emptiness. What is inside that, you ask? Silence is all I can say. Lovers have some secrets that they keep.
So we breathe into the beauty of the spoken word, to the mystical Islam, Sufism. And we allow ourselves to become foolishly in love with everything, with life, with ourselves, with all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses, with all of the darkness, with all of the life, with everything that is happening in the world. We surround it in love as we remember the truth about existence, that the I Am presence is here and it is all there is. So today, as we sing, I am remembering who I am, let us remember for ourselves that I am is the name of God or Spirit or love. But also let us remember for the entire world that love is everything, and we fall foolishly in love. Beauty of this love as this love. Let us return to our open-eyed awareness as we breathe in deeply, and then exhale, gently opening our eyes in love with what is as it is, and so it is.
The gifts I choose for you are peace, joy, and understanding. The gifts I choose for the earth are laughter and harmony. And with my heart I wrap these gifts with love. with love, and with my hands I tie a ribbon of compassion. The gifts I choose for you are peace, joy, and understanding. The gifts I choose for the world are friendship, sweet friendship. The gifts I choose for the world are friendship, sweet friendship, and peace.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you. How do you like my stool? I just decided to try it out. It's just getting more and more sweet and friendly and quiet up here. The day I bring in a Barca lounger, maybe, maybe you could object to that if you like, but we'll see how this works anyway. So I'm speaking today about a book that actually is not in your program, and it's not up here either. It's a book that I just started reading, and I'll be featuring it for the coming Sundays for about the next month and a half or so. It's a book called Breathing Underwater by Father Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan mystic, and it's a beautiful book about the 12 steps and how the 12 steps relate to the Judeo-Christian tradition and also other mystical traditions. Now, this book, Breathing Underwater, is largely about addiction. And I have to say that I selected it at first so that I could read it and understand and possibly fix some of the addicts in my own life. Just needed to give some other people a tune-up. Needless to say, once I cracked open the book, I learned, of course, that we are all addicted to something. That some of us are addicted to things that we can see, like substances, like sex, like food, right? Alcohol, anything else, all those things that we can actually see. But others of us, in fact, all of us, are addicted to some type of thought pattern. We're addicted to our thinking. We're addicted to thinking that our thinking is reality. And then we empower that thinking with emotion to turn it into a belief. And so we're addicted to our beliefs, when really our belief is just a belief. We call our belief reality. Has anyone here ever done that? Perchance? Okay. David's the only one. Okay. Sorry to hear that. We'll have to talk after class. Yes, I know, it's painful. It's painful for all of us, said the little baby. So, and one of the things I've been noticing as I've been reading this book, and I've been exposing myself to other things as well. Oh, no. Been reading some other authors as well and going really deep into sort of esoteric wisdom. That's why I just flashed the congregation, of course. Because the two are connected, believe it or not. Anyway, what I'm getting is that in order to really walk the talk of the mystics, and in order to really live like the mystics and be a mystical presence here on the planet Earth, it takes a much more radical shift than I was aware of. That I personally, and perhaps some of you, really have to make a change in a big way, in a way that doesn't really make sense to the ego, but in a way that can't be even controlled, but then in a way that is provided to us by grace. And yet we can make ourselves available for this grace through our actions and through our thoughts and through our spiritual practice. So hold that thought about a radical spiritual shift is required, because we'll get back to that. I want to talk a little bit about what this actual message is going to be about. It's about addiction. And in meditating on addiction, I decided to come up with, is my mic acting funny? Am I getting feedback? Okay, I can hear it, but okay. I decided to look at one of my thought addictions that I think I probably share with a lot of people. I'm maybe not the only one in this room that has this addiction. And what came to me in meditation was to look at our addiction to rejection. Doesn't that sound like fun? Doesn't that sound inspiring? You know, and some of us may think, well, I'm not addicted to rejection. I do everything I possibly can to avoid rejection. That's part of the addiction. So today's message is called, Do You Love Rejection? And the first meaning of that phrase, do you love rejection, is, are you addicted to rejection? I would guess that even if you don't think that you're addicted to rejection, you might be. And if you're truly not addicted to rejection, then just ignore me, but pray for the person sitting next to you, because they're a mess. They're going to need all the help you can give, okay? All right. So in my observations about rejection, I looked over my life, and I spoke with a lot of people about this, and I noticed that there are different kinds of rejection to which we get addicted. One type of rejection is the anticipation of rejection. Has anyone here ever anticipated being rejected? Planned to fail, right? One of our testifiers, it was a testimonial Sunday maybe 1 or 2 times ago, got up and spoke about their experience in the church. This person, who will remain nameless, but he may be teaching the roots of Christian mysticism coming up. This person spoke about the first time he wanted to teach a class in this church, in this center, and the class that he was going to teach was unvarnished Meister Eckhart. It wasn't Meister Eckhart for dummies. It was the real thing. It was Meister Eckhart. And when he put up the sign-up sheet, his first thought was, well, nobody's going to sign up. And then his second thought was, uh-oh, what if people sign up? Right? And wouldn't you say that that's anticipating rejection? And haven't we all done something like that? You know, I know that when I see somebody in the hallway after the service and I say, oh, I need to speak to you in my office. They're objecting. They're anticipating like the worst possible excommunication that we don't even do here type of scenario, I'm sure. So there's anticipating rejection. There's also the tendency to seek rejection. Now this one gets a little mortifying for me. Some of you know, and perhaps some of you share this proclivity of, in the past, perhaps dating people that were really, really bad for you. Anybody, show of hands. Right. Yeah, so when I was younger, I just dated a whole bevy of bad boys, most of them musicians, thank you. You know, there could be, in fact there was this nice doctor that lived across the street from me who wanted me to date me, and then there was the musician, the jazz musician with a party van and lots of weed. Which one do you think I went for? Yeah, I'm getting the thumbs up from David Parlato in the back there. Yeah. So there was that, but I have to say that my crowning achievement of dating people that were inappropriate, that were rejecting, was the time, okay, so you know how like the fundamentalist Christians always accuse gay people of trying to recruit, right? Well, how many straight people have tried to recruit? Hello? Who among us who has not gone to music school has not tried to recruit at least one gay person to be straight? That's what I did. And in this church, we bless all expressions of sexual orientation. To me, it's about as interesting as eye color. But in that one instance, he was just so handsome, and he was such a good singer, and he really, at that point, wanted to be straight, and his parents wanted him to be straight, and I said, okay, well, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'm going in. That was, and you know what was amazing about that, other than the fact that I did it, was that he rejected me after a couple of weeks. It's not only dating. Some of us pick cruel careers. Hello? No. I'm talking about acting and singing, not ministry. Some of us work for punishing bosses, Annette, right? But look within yourself and ask yourself, is there any place in my life where I've either anticipated rejection, or have I sort of unknowingly, unconsciously, or maybe even deliberately sought out rejection because something about it felt so right? We'll talk about why that is in a little bit. The other thing that I've noticed about rejection is that sometimes rejection isn't really rejection. That sometimes somebody is just minding their own business, but we perceive it as rejection. I've noticed in years of being married. Sorry, I forgot to tell you I was going to talk about you today, but this is not a bad story. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. Bye, we love you. It's okay, we love you. She's so cute. When we were singing, I am remembering, I opened my eyes and I saw Jana singing it to her beautiful little granddaughter, and it just, that's why I wasn't singing. I was too busy crying when I saw that. It was so beautiful. But back to perceiving rejection. So early in the marriage, my husband would do something like leave crumbs on the counter, and I'd be like, you see? He doesn't love me. If he really loved me, there would be no crumbs on this counter. Right? Has any one of you ever done that? It wasn't, some of you are hanging your heads in shame. I'm so sorry. It wasn't about the crumbs on the counter. It was about male pattern blindness, They don't see crumbs on the counter. They don't see when the stove is spackled with spaghetti sauce. They just don't, okay? I'm going to hear about this at home, aren't I? So we perceive rejection when there isn't rejection. And think about that right now. Is there a place in your life where you are feeling rejected? And could it be that you may just be perceiving rejection where there is no rejection, where it's not even about you? Wouldn't that be interesting? So remember what I said in the beginning, that we have our thoughts, and we think that because we're thinking our thoughts, that our thoughts are real, and then we empower those thoughts with emotion, and those thoughts become belief, and belief becomes our reality, but our reality is virtual, our reality is subjective. The real reality is that these indications of rejection may truly have nothing to do with you. And then there's a fourth kind of rejection that I observed, and that is our tendency to be rejectors and to reject. A while ago, I remember, I've told you several times the story about Krishnamurti, who told his disciples that his secret to happiness was, I don't mind what happens. Now, evidently, Judy Pando did a talk, not so recently, but a year ago, where she said that she does mind what happens. Thank God that she is the only one in this room, so that we all may lift her up with our prayers. But that's a form of rejection too, the way that we fight with reality, or the way that we fight with other people, that we reject other people for their opinions, for the way they show up in our lives, for the way they interact with us. We are often in a state of resistance and rejection, and that adds to our own experience of rejection, our own addiction to rejection. So not only are we addicted to, what was the first one? Anticipating, seeking, and perceiving rejection, we're also addicted to rejecting, and it's all part of this incredible cycle. So I spoke with one of my friends, several of my friends, about why do we do this? And one of my friends, who's very wise, asked me specifically about me. What is the payoff in all of this addiction to rejection? What do you think you're gaining from this addiction to rejection? The first thing that I noticed was that I think that sometimes, particularly in the anticipating of rejection, sometimes we anticipate rejection or we anticipate failure, we plan to fail or we plan to be rejected because it feels protective. It feels like it protects us from our next great disappointment or heartache. If I can just anticipate this, maybe if the bad thing happens, then maybe it won't be so bad. So there's that. And then another thing that I noticed in myself, and again, this is a little embarrassing too, but sometimes I feel like yeah, she's embarrassed for me, it's okay. Sometimes I am seeking rejection so that I can be the one to reject instead of the one being rejected. Does that make sense? There was a Veep about that. Anybody watch the show Veep? It's not clean family entertainment, just let me warn you, it's nasty. But she made a big point of dumping her boyfriend before he could dump her, because if she did that, then she would be the one in control. She would be the one to save face. And I think that subtly we do that sometimes with rejection. We seek out rejection. We seek out who might reject us so that we can reject them first. We're hilarious, aren't we? We're so busy. We're so busy doing all of this stuff. The other thing I noticed about perhaps the whys behind our addiction to rejection is that many of us walk around with the belief, I am unlovable or I am unworthy. And oddly, if we experience rejection, then for just a weird moment, we get to be right. You know, we have a belief, and then we start seeking evidence to affirm that belief. That's what we do. We have a belief, and then we scout around like, I don't know, like wild animals trying to find evidence that supports that belief. And if we have the belief, I am unworthy or I am unlovable, if somebody rejects us, we say, you see, I was right. And again, oddly, that feels like a strange comfort to us. So what I've noticed about rejection, what I've noticed in the why around rejection, is that it seems to me that we are addicted to rejection, and this addiction stays stuck because we simultaneously try and push away rejection while we draw it to us. We're straddling this weird threshold where we can't really move forward because we're simultaneously pushing away rejection while drawing it to us. You know, it's like, do you know that Joni Mitchell song where she says, you want to get moving, but you want to stand still? It's that way with rejection. You know, it reminds me of, I knew this guy in New York who had obsessive compulsive disorder, and he was afraid of elevators. And if we would go in an elevator together, he would stand at the threshold of the elevator, he'd put 1 foot over, and then 1 foot back, and 1 foot over, and 1 foot back. It took forever to get him to go down an elevator. But I think that's kind of how we are with our relationship with rejection, is that we push it away because we can't stand the thought of it, but we also cling to it because it's oddly comforting in some strange way. And take a moment and just check in with yourself and see if that's true. Can you feel that energy in yourself at all? Can you feel the energy of trying to avoid rejection while at the same time anticipating it and seeking it and clinging to it because it's oddly comforting? Perhaps you can, perhaps you can't. What's more important? No, it's not more important, it's as important. It's important to see our relationship with rejection or any other thought pattern that we might be addicted to. It's important to see it, but it's also important not to get stuck in it. And that's where this radical shift in consciousness comes in. You know, sometimes when we perceive that we are fearful of rejection or that we are addicted to rejection, we try and use our ego mind to get rid of the rejection, to push it away. We will affirm ourselves to death. We will do anything to avoid feeling that rejection. Right? It takes something a little more grace-filled and a little more radical than that. I think what it takes to overcome our addiction to rejection or any kind of thought that stands in the way of the kingdom of heaven on earth, which is within us, I think the thing is grace and surrender. It takes a radical shift. I was reading something about Meister Eckhart, and he talked about the ground without ground. You know, when we're so used to clinging to rejection or pushing it away, that gives us something to do. When we're used to seeking rejection or anticipating rejection, that gives us something to do. That provides us with some type of comfort. That makes us feel like we're accomplishing something. But if we enter into the ground without ground, we are kind of unmoored. But that unmooring gives us space for the new and the better and the deeper and the sweeter and the darker and the lighter to come in and lift us up. It's one of those things that is not connect the dots theology. Really what it is just showing up and doing your life and being aware and being kind to yourself and being willing to face the darkness that you see within you, being willing to face the addictions that you have, whether it's a thought addiction or any kind of substance or anything else. But there are some things that we can do to, say, open the portal for grace. And I would say it's a combination of thought and behavior. Richard Rohr is always talking about how we have to live ourselves into a new way of thinking, but I think the opposite is true as well, that we have to think ourselves into a new way of living. One thought I'd like to share with you about rejection that I think might be helpful if you are indeed addicted to rejection, and if you have experienced some of these things that we've talked about, the anticipating, the seeking, the clinging to it, the rejecting of others. One thing I'd like to share with you is just to consider for a moment that all rejection is actually self-rejection. Certainly people will say no to you in your life. The job that I had before this, I was a corporate trainer, and I did all of the training, all of the hiring, and all of the firing, and I had to fire a lot of people. And there were people that were not a good fit. I had to say no to a lot of people. But was it done in a rejecting manner? Not really. I'm sure they perceived it that way because they were busily rejecting themselves. Let's go back to my gay boyfriend. The poor soul that I tried to convert in 2 weeks. Oh, I've got stories. Anyway, you know, as odd as that was, I know, I feel your pain, babe. As odd as that was for me to do that, you know, that's where my work is that why did I feel the need to do that? But once I was in it, I knew it wasn't right. I knew he was gay. He knew he was gay. His parents knew he was gay, and yet I was still going to try. And as I said, when he dumped me, I still felt rejected. Did the rejection take place in him or in me? He was just being himself. He was being who God made him to be. He was being honest with me and telling me that it wasn't going to work because of our sexual orientation did not match up in the way that you know we both needed, right? He wasn't rejecting me, but I felt rejected because I was rejecting myself. My esteem at that point was, I guess, so low that somehow I was saying to myself, wow, I'm such a loser. This guy who isn't even heterosexual rejected me. I must truly be unlovable and unworthy. Thank you, God, for calling. So that's how it works. And do you understand that? How rejection? I hardly ever say all, but I really think that this is true. I think that all rejection is self-rejection. You know, even if somebody says no, if it's something that you really want, even if they do it in a mean way, whatever you do with that, that is you rejecting yourself. Once it leaves their mouth and enters your ear and goes into your brain, that is where the capacity for self-rejection or not self-rejection, self-validation, self-acceptance, self-worthiness, recognizing that this is an opportunity, recognizing with my friend, my gay friend, I almost said his name, I'm not going to do that, my gay friend, that I dodged a bullet, you know, that he needed to be with a man and I needed to be with a man who liked women. So all rejection is self-rejection. It's an opportunity to see that there is something greater and better, right? Once we stop rejecting ourselves, we can see the opportunity for something greater and better. Are you going to do that from now on? Are you? You promise? You promise? Don't make me call you into my office. I think that would really change the world, because I think a lot of the times when we are fearing rejection or seeking rejection or anticipating it or whatever, we walk around kind of defensively, and we're always looking for a fight. We're always looking to be rejected, so we're always looking to protect ourselves. We're always looking to get something so we can't give anything. I think that kind of perception that all rejection is self-rejection can change the world. And certainly it can start changing our own personal lives and our families and our workplaces and our friendships. So that was the thought, the idea that all rejection is self-rejection. The behavior that I'd like to suggest in terms of opening up that portal to a greater experience of grace, a greater freedom from the addiction of rejection, behavior I'd like to suggest is to be mindful of our own tendency to reject. I just spoke about it with Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti doesn't mind what happens. Notice where you are minding what happens. The thing is that you don't have to like what happens. But if you resist what happens, that's minding what happens. If you resist what happens and fight with it and say that it shouldn't be happening, that is minding what happens. I remember when Byron Katie spoke here last summer, and she really is very, very much a living example of not minding what happens. She's very much, her whole message is about refusing to engage in a wrestling match with reality, because reality is the entire universe, and everything that happens to us has been set in motion for billions of years, right? I remember somebody asking her in sort of a defiant way, well, what if your husband cheated on you? Would you still not mind what happens? Would you still say that that's what should be? And she said, oh, honey, if my husband met somebody that he liked better than me, that's nicer than me, I would really want to meet that person. And that may be taking it to an extreme, but really there is some truth to that. Let's use that example. If somebody leaves you for somebody else, do you really want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you? Probably not. Probably not. Somebody fires you. Do you really want to be at a job where you're not wanted? Probably not. So it's that radical minding of not minding what happens that really changes us at depth. That's what really opens up the way for a greater experience of grace. Because when we don't resist what happens, that really changes us from the inside out. It puts us in a place where we are in touch with the infinite, where we are living in the mystery, where we're not so addicted to our own version of reality, but we're opening ourselves up to a greater vision. Not only greater vision, but greater listening and greater conversation. When we are in a place of not minding what happens, when we're allowing ourselves to move free, to get free of rejecting others or rejecting life or even rejecting ourselves and just being with things in a greater place of curiosity, then we become better listeners. And listening is a beautiful thing. Listening also can heal the world. But it's so simple that nobody does it. I remember last summer when I was working with Nipun Mehta, who is one of our friends, who is, by the way, coming back this summer. He's coming on August 7th, yay, to do the church service. He's bringing some of his friends with him. He's a kind of a kindness expert and serves on all kinds of great committees about building kindness in the world and such. But one of the techniques that he taught me when I was working with him is if somebody says something objectionable to you, just wait. Just wait. Does every objectionable response, every objectionable statement require a response? It doesn't. I remember last summer, right after I'd heard this, I was with somebody who was a fundamentalist Christian, and we were talking just about life and stuff. We were having a really, really good talk, and she started in on evolution. Well, I am a creationist through and through, and I do not believe in that BS called evolution. And of course, me, being in this position, in this faith, I was like, what? That's what my mind said. However, I just sat there and just breathed and just nodded. And you know what? It did not require a response. The conversation changed. I didn't have to hold up a banner for evolution. She believed what I believed. I believed what she did. I believed what I did. And by the end of our time together, I was honestly grateful that she had a certain belief system that was kind of rigid and very detailed, because as I learned more about her life, I realized, she really needs something like that that's very structured. So it opens up a whole different level of listening and a different kind of conversation if we are willing to refrain from rejecting people, even in moment-to-moment interactions. The other thing I wanted to say about this too is that, I keep saying that it can change the world, and I really believe that it can. I think that the world is not changed by the political leaders. I think it's changed by all of us doing the work, all of us going deeper and growing deeper in our willingness to be in this groundless ground, in this place of non-duality and mysticism, and recognizing that truly there is nothing against us, and that the world is a beautiful place, and that we are here to give birth to that and to raise it up. Even if it's bad, there's a goodness to the badness, right? I'm not saying that there is no evil. There is evil, but there is in the bigger picture, there is a power and a presence behind that is moving things forward. So this week I was thinking about that in terms of global issues, and there were a lot this week. Certainly there were a lot of things that happened, but the one that got my attention particularly was when the child climbed into the gorilla cage and they shot the gorilla, right? And there was a lot of polarization around that. People were so angry at the zookeepers for shooting the gorilla. Other people were so angry at the parents for not watching their child. Other people were so angry at people for being angry. And I just thought about that in terms of rejecting this talk. Are we rejecting the zookeepers in their action? Are we rejecting the parents in their action? Are we rejecting those who are rejecting? So how do we navigate that in terms of this talk about being addicted to rejection? And what occurred to me was, what if, instead of rejecting the people that we disagree with, what if we could, again, just sit and listen and open ourselves up to the possibility of a deeper conversation? So the conversation with the zookeepers must have been such a hard decision. You had seconds to make that decision. And there's this animal that you've been caring for years and years and years, and you had to make that decision to save a little boy. And to the parents, I am not a parent, I'm a dog parent, and I know that I don't live in fear, but I do have fear that I'll just go mindless sometime and just make a mistake where one of them will get hurt. Do other parents feel that way? It's just an ongoing thing where your attention shifts and something happens. So to the parents, oh my gosh, that must have been so horrible for you. You must have felt so guilty. You must have felt just so much fear. And if we approach it that way, from a place of compassion, from a place of letting go of our addiction to rejecting what is, to rejecting other people, to rejecting their decisions, to rejecting their choices, again, I think that opens up a deeper conversation, a conversation that is not quite so polarized, but a conversation that can actually lead to change and growth and compassion. Not only on the seen side of the world, not only on better gorilla enclosures or stricter rules around watching your children around the zoo exhibits, but on the unseen side of life. I think every time we let go of rejection and choose compassion and choose listening and choose a deeper conversation, I think something changes for us and for all of us. That's part of that radical shift I'm talking about. It's not measurable. You can't measure it. You can't say, yes, if I connect this dot, then this will happen, and then this will happen. No, you just keep doing the work, one small choice at a time, one small breath at a time, one small conversation at a time, one piece of listening at a time, one act of compassion at a time, and then watch your inner world shift, and then the outer world starts shifting as well, right? So this talk this morning was called, Do You Love Rejection? And The first intention of the talk title was, Do You Love Rejection? As in, are you addicted to rejection? And probably some of us are. But you know what? It's a beautiful thing. Because the other meaning of this talk is, do you love rejection? Rejection can be your friend. Rejection can be your teacher. Every time you see yourself anticipating rejection, every time you see yourself seeking rejection, every time you see yourself feeling rejection, you can remember that all rejection is self-rejection, right? And then you can do something else. You can make a new choice. You can open your heart to be that conduit for grace. You can have a conversation. You can go deeper in your conversations. You can listen better. You can listen more deeply. You can be the divine being that is just like that little baby that's crying in the background, that sweet little girl who absolutely knows who she is, right? Let us all remember who we are. Let's do that now, and let us pray. I turn within and absolutely trust to know that there is one perfect life. That life is God's life. That life is the life of all of us. That life is my life right here and right now. So in this place of grace and in this place of goodness, in this place of beauty, I connect with that life and know it to be mine. I know that I can't name this life. It goes by many names: God, love, higher power, peace, presence, ground of all possible being. And although my words fall short of defining this life that can never be defined, my words can open us, me, all of us, the world, up to a greater experience and expression and expansion. Because we have been given words by this life, and we use them wisely and kindly and with compassion. And so here today, I know that every single person sitting in this room has grown in some way. Whether it's through accepting the addiction to rejection and understanding it, or whether it's saying, that's not me, and letting it go. Whether it's in minding what happens or not minding what happens. Whether it's in recognizing that we truly are the life of God evolving here on the planet Earth. Whether it's in deciding just to be. All of this, I trust, is unfolding in perfect time and perfect being and perfect goodness. And I'm so grateful to be part of this and to be part of this with all of you here today. And so I bless and accept the transformation that has occurred here today because of our shared time, because of our journey, because of the music, because of our fellowship. I bless and accept this entire congregation and give thanks for the evolution of our souls and of our being. I give thanks for this teaching and for all of the wisdom that it has to offer us. I give thanks for all wisdom teachings, all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless fundamentalists and atheists. I bless everyone, for everyone is a blessing. And with a heart so filled with blessedness and so filled with knowing the grace of God here within us, upon us, I say thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the mystery of the law, and together we say, and so it is.
When you're weary and feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all, 'cause I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down.
Please repeat after me. I am held in Spirit's holiness, divinely guided by wisdom, courage, and love. I am always connected. I see God in everything. I create joy on earth as I share my blessings. Thank you for my life. And so it is.